Think about the deeply uncomfortable knot in your stomach when you reconnect with an old childhood friend and realize they've become wildly, incredibly successful, while you haven't. Now take that anxiety and magnify it to a matter of life and death. That is the reality for Sudama. He is a deeply pious Brahmin, but he is trapped in a level of poverty so severe that he literally cannot afford a single meal for his own starving children. And that childhood friend he grew up with, his name is Krishna. He now sits on a throne as the supreme monarch of Dwarka, a city quite literally made of solid gold. Which brings us to the core tension of this entire story. When an economic divide stretches this wide, can a shared childhood past actually survive it? The breaking point comes when Sudama's wife finally collapses in tears over their crying children. To keep his family alive, Sudama is forced to do the one thing he dreads most: swallow his pride. He agrees to travel to King Krishna's court. But the hesitation is paralyzing. The shame of knocking on the door of an incredibly wealthy friend just to beg for a handout is almost too much to bear. He refuses to arrive completely empty-handed, so his wife frantically begs their neighbors, scraping together a tiny handful of dry, flattened rice, known as poha. Sudama sets off on foot, holding this pitiful bundle. Every step of the long walk is dominated by pure dread. He is a man dressed in literal rags, marching toward heavily armed royal guards. With every mile, the physical exhaustion of the journey is eclipsed by the certainty that he is walking directly into a spectacle of his own humiliation. After days of walking, Sudama finally reaches Dwarka. The sight is staggering. He stands covered in dust and filth, staring up at an endless, glowing expanse of intricate, solid gold architecture. The rejection is immediate. The royal guards take one look at this ragged, emaciated man claiming to be the king's personal friend, and they laugh in his face, physically blocking the entrance. But a message eventually filters deep into the inner palace chambers. A beggar named Sudama is waiting outside. The moment Krishna hears that name, he shatters all royal decorum. He leaps up from his throne in absolute shock. He doesn't even stop to put on shoes. The supreme monarch of Dwarka sprints barefoot down the polished marble corridors to reach the front gates as fast as humanly possible. The guards and citizens watch in stunned silence as their king throws his arms around a filthy, trembling visitor. This public act of devotion overrides every rule of royal protocol. In the eyes of the court, the king's crown has been momentarily set aside for a bond that predates his power. Inside the palace, the distance of the last few decades vanishes. They sit together as they did in Sandipani's ashram, two students who once shared the same floor and the same lessons. But as they sit surrounded by unimaginable wealth, the reality of the present creeps back in. Sudama remembers the pathetic, torn cloth of dry rice hidden in his robes, and a hot wave of shame washes over him. He tries to quietly shove the bundle out of sight. Krishna spots him, reaches over, and playfully snatches the ragged pouch away. Without missing a beat, Krishna opens the rags, grabs a handful of the dry poha, and eagerly eats it. He looks at his court and declares that it tastes like pure nectar. Later, as Sudama eats a massive feast served on solid gold plates, a realization hits him. He cannot bring himself to ask for help. Turning this reunion into a request for money feels like it would destroy the only thing he has left. Value is entirely subjective. Krishna sits in a city of gold, yet he assigns infinite worth to a ragged bundle of dry rice because he recognizes the personal sacrifice required to bring it to him. After 2 days of royal hospitality, the visit ends. Sudama walks out of the gates of Dwarka exactly as destitute as when he arrived. The long trek home is agonizing. Spiritually, Sudama is completely fulfilled by the reunion, but practically, he is terrified. A haunting question echoes in his mind. How will he look into his starving children's eyes and tell them he brought back nothing? Sudama's silence reveals the paralyzing weight of his own dignity. Even with his family's survival at stake, the prospect of turning a lifelong bond into a transaction feels like a final, unbearable loss of self. Sudama finally reaches the exact spot where his miserable, broken hut used to stand. But it's gone. In its place stands a beautiful, wealthy estate. The doors open, and his wife emerges. She's wearing fine clothes, looking completely healthy and weeping with joy. Krishna had understood everything. He saw the poverty and the silence, and he fulfilled his friend's needs, completely sparing Sudama the profound indignity of having to beg. The emotional weight of a true gift operates entirely outside the rules of material economics. This story endures because it defines true friendship as the ultimate social equalizer. It doesn't check bank accounts or royal status. It runs strictly on the unconditional love carried between equals.